On today's show, we're talking about data. We all collect it, we all talk about it, but how are we using it? Data scientist Dr. Joy Smithson and Jackson Public School District education leader Mrs. LaToya Blackshear talk with us about how they have harnessed the power of data to improve outcomes and so much more. That's up next on the EduTechGuys. You're listening to the EduTechGuys, EduTechGuys.com. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm David Henderson.
Hey, I'm Jeff Madlock.
Yeah, thank you so much for grabbing the episode, downloading it, turning it on, however you're listening. We appreciate it.
It's like a carton of vegan coconut milk. You just grab it right off this thing and throw it in your cart. That's how we are. Vegan coconut milk.
And then you take it home and throw it in the trash.
Please don't do that with this episode. Okay, let's change that. It's like a 1-inch thick T-bone steak that you're not supposed to have. Okay, for those of you that don't eat.
That's right. We're going to cover all the bases.
Yeah, listen, it's a bag of Skittles. Hey, listen, don't forget to check us out on the web, www.edutechguys.com. You can also find us on social media. Just go out to Google, put in that EduTechGuys. We're there at EduTechGuys everywhere. You'll find us staring back at you with some goofy emojicons.
It is emojicons.
Is that right? Bitmojicons. Emojicons? Emojis. I don't know. They're cartoon references of us. They're much svelter, skinnier cartoon references.
That is a fact. That is a fact. It's amazing what an animated version of yourself, you know, what you can do with that.
It's completely different than the camera. The camera puts on, for me, the camera puts on 300 pounds.
Yes,
but it's funny, an emoji takes off 300 pounds. Right. Jeff looks so skinny. I was like, why are their heads so big? Well, that's what happens when you have to.
That's what happens when you bitmoji yourself.
Yeah, bitmoji yourself. Hey, listen, it's going to be a great episode today. I think you're going to enjoy it. Talking about data. We always, honestly, I just, that's one that just wears me out. We have so much of it floating around, and it's hard for our educators to actually go, what do I do with all this? I've got all this stuff, the third rat from the left, sings Baroque opera at night at 2 a.m. What is that going to mean in the classroom? Well, you got a rat in your classroom. That's what it means.
Home maintenance. There's your data. What?
That's your data. Hey, listen, we were running some data, and the cockroaches come out in the classroom between 1:45 and 1:55 every night. So
normally, I would promise that our show was on the rails at some point, but it's never. Our show is never on the rails.
It's on the rails during the interview.
Well, that's true. That's a good point.
The rest of the time, I think it's just like a game of tetherball. We're just smacking it back and forth to see who gets to wrap the rope around the pole. I think that's all it is. It's radio. It's podcast tetherball is what it is.
That's it. The EduTechGuys podcast tetherball.
Just smacking it back and forth until one of us misses it and the other one just keeps hitting it. Oh, I got you now. Gonna wrap that rope around that thing. Someone said to me the other day, one of my sysadmins, kids, we're like, what are the rules to tetherball? Literally, you just hit the ball till you can knock it away from the person and wrap the rope around, wrap it around the pole. First one to that wins. And then he said, boy, y'all were really up for hard time, up for fun back when you were kids, weren't you? And I was like, yeah, I guess we were.
Listen, we're Gen X. The stick wasn't even in the ground when we were kids, man.
Somebody said to me that, what did you guys do in high school? I said, you don't know what we did in high school. I said, what we didn't do was sit around with the Atari 2600 playing Miss Pac-Man forever. What games you got? I got Asteroids. I got Miss Pac-Man. I got Pitfall. I mean,
we all played combat.
Yeah, and everybody knows this name.
That's
that
right.
sound.
That's right. Blown in the cartridge, which is so funny. I saw a TikTok the other day, and it was somebody blowing into like a Nintendo cartridge or something. And they're like, hey, do you remember these days? I'm like, listen,
I can take you back.
That's a long time after we were all blown into our Atari cartridges.
Let me tell you how we hooked Pong up with some screws to the back of the television.
The back of the TV. That's right.
Let me remove the rabbit ears and plug in my Pong machine on the back of the TV.
That's right.
I got two words for you don't know: Sears and Roebuck. Hey, listen, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have a great interview coming your way right after this.
Are you using Soundtrap for personal use, recording podcasts, making music, and more? More importantly, are you using Soundtrap in the classroom? Soundtrap for the classroom is amazing, allowing students the ability to create music, podcasts, audio for their projects, and so much more. Check out Soundtrap now at soundtrap.com.
Hey, welcome back to the EduTechGuys. We're really excited to have our next guest on the show. It's going to be a wonderful conversation. It's everything that we deal with every day in school, but some of us don't know how to use it. And this is a great time to learn out how we can use it for student outcomes. So we're going to let our guests tell us who they are and what they do, where they're from, and all that kind of good stuff. So here we go.
LaToya, I'm going to let you go first. Lovely LaToya.
Well, I was going to bounce off Joy. So my name is LaToya Blackshear. I currently work for Jackson Public School as a director of planning and evaluation. I'm currently in around about my 4th or 5th year in this role. Since then, I was a former principal at Clausell Elementary for 3 years. And prior to that, I worked for a little bit for Mississippi Department of Education.
Well, and I'm Joy, and I am the data scientist at SchoolStatus, and I've been with the company for 8 years, be 8 years next month, basically. And I know LaToya through SchoolStatus. So she and I have been working really closely together, really since she's been in her current role primarily. And so what SchoolStatus does is we're basically a communication solution, and we're built on or layered on a foundation of student data. So we really marry student data and communication to really promote authentic engagement. So we have a solution where, you can do school blasts or district blasts, but we feel like our sweet spot is on one-to-one parent-teacher communication. So, and then that data piece just makes it informed. So, yeah.
So talk a little bit about how that particular piece works. What data are you using in order to help facilitate that one-to-one parent-teacher communication?
Yeah, so we use the student information system as the source of truth. So that's where the district, that's where they house kind of their course schedules, the student ID, everything. It kind of revolves around that student ID being matched. So currently enrolled students, we use that as our source of truth. And so a lot of the information is in the student information system, but that's not accessible to many people. That's usually in a silo. Then you have your benchmark data, yet siloed again, your state assessment data, yet siloed again, your ACT data or SAT data, siloed again. Let's see, what else, LaToya, am I missing? So we just take all this data and basically, not only do we put it in one platform, but it's scoped to the user. So if you're a teacher, it's focused on your course schedule. And you can quickly pull up, we call it a student card, but it's just a little card and it's got the student picture and details about the student, his or her birthday, and gender, race, grade. And then you can see their course schedule and you can kind of click and see their history, past grades, past schedules, historical assessment data. And so that way a teacher can kind of see, maybe they're looking at aggregate data on attendance and they notice, wow, Joy all of a sudden has started missing a lot of school. Then they can click on that student card, click an icon, make a call. Their phone number is masked. It records the call. LaToya, as an administrator, can go back and listen to that later if there's any dispute or a question about that. So that's a very long-winded response to your question, but I hope that adds some clarity to what we're using.
It does. I'm a little curious from LaToya's perspective. What what Joy just shared, what does that look like practically from a practical standpoint? How are you guys actually using it in the trenches?
Yeah.
So in the trenches, for various reasons. Like she said, if we wanted to communicate to our parents, we simply can send out a text. We are in the technology world today. Most people do not just answer the phone, hello. We now just kind of send text message, and we can reach parents quicker that way because they'll look at that text, they have to watch and respond back and forth. And it's a two-way communication. As Joy stated, it masks our phone numbers. So they're not really getting our personal cell numbers or whatever, wherever we're calling from. We can call from the computer. It can be done from the phone, the desk phone, or your cell phone. So any one of those things. So we like to, on a daily basis, we call just for SEL, social emotion. Hey, we just wanted to let you know LaToya is doing well, or we want to keep you updated about your academics, or we have a parent meeting tonight. So anything to that nature, because it's so important. Research says the more we involve parents, the better our students perform in school. So that's kind of the outreach side of it. But we also use it for our data as well. As Joy stated, it houses all of our data, where I would have to go in a drawer or to another system and get this data, or over here and get this data. It takes from our SAS system, and we partnered. SchoolStatus has partnered with a number of our partners where that data has imported to the system. So I go to my test and I can see every data point that we've used, and we use that to track our data, to see the trends. How are we performing? What extra professional development do we need to offer for the teacher to ensure we get the student outcomes that we're looking for? What are some of the student strengths, weaknesses? We look at learning loss. I was proficient on this exam, and then the next exam I may have dropped, or so we look at it for various reasons. Enrichment, additional support for the student, because what we're trying to definitely do is be more proactive now.
So let's get a little more in depth for our educators listening to this podcast. When we talk about these cards, a dashboard maybe for each student, we're talking about not just scores and ACT scores, and we're talking in benchmarks. Are we talking about IEPs and 504s and RTI and all that kind of good stuff? So now a teacher has the ability to see across the board, as do the administrators, exactly how a student is developing and where they're having weaknesses and strengths. How is that affected the way the administrators do their jobs, and how's that affected the way that the teachers are doing their jobs? It seems like that would be a really cool piece to have, like all this information right at your fingertips.
So for us in there, we use it as a part of our RTI process. So when we're working on that information, we can actually see again, what they've made on specific assessments or something like that. It does kind of tell us if this student is an IEP student. Now, it does not get to the granular of identifying specific standards or something like that,
Sure.
But we can look at all of the assessments either, and I was going to say, horizontal, but it's actually vertical. So it'll show my name several times. I'm color coded based upon my level. So if I fall into a level 1, I may be red. So it definitely, but we also use it for attendance as well. And that's a strong piece as well. If I'm absent, maybe I'm absent every Monday or every Tuesday or something like that. I can see the trends in which the student is absent and how he or she is performing. So it's just not academic. It paints a whole picture for us, looking at the whole child, and that's just very important. The other part we like about it is when we meet with teachers to discuss all of the data, whether it's attendance, whether it's behavior infractions, because it reports all that as well. The teacher can make notes within the system on a little note card. So if I'm having trouble, every teacher that has that student can also view that information. So you see how powerful that is when we go in to discuss the whole child and what we could do, and what type of services this scholar may need. It's nice. It's a very nice system. We definitely enjoy it.
So this might be a Joy question, but when you were putting this together, using the data, let's talk about early responses to issues you see happening and predicting outcomes and, looking at it that way. Is that kind of the idea? I know, how much data do you have to collect before you can get to that point where you can predict outcomes and maybe, create an intervention or predict an early response to something you see coming through that data?
Okay, that's a really good question. So I guess I'm going to answer it in kind of two parts. And the first would be that I would say there's no silver bullet in education, right? So I'm kind of quoting our CEO right now, but we all kind of want there to be this like panacea, this one-shot solution. And we definitely do not claim to be that or to know what that is. But the second part I would say to that is that we do have a guide based on policy that currently exists. So, and what I mean by that is, and I'm going to kind of tack on to what LaToya was just describing, but just take, for example, the state accountability model. So all public education institutions are kind of graded on the state's policy for, our students meeting proficiency standards by subject, for example, and by grade. Do we have high quality teachers in a district, for example? So LaToya maybe spent, I don't want to put in words into your mouth, LaToya, but hours was combining these maybe Excel sheets, to try and estimate using the benchmark, for example, where might students land based on the current accountability model, using the information that they have on hand to try and estimate how many points will we get for our students' achievement? How many points will we get for their progress from this last stage to the current one? And then that's something that they might have asked principals to do, but principals are also juggling all these different hats. So something that SchoolStatus does is we have that aggregate level view where someone in LaToya's position can kind of see at a bird's eye view, 40% were proficient in ELA. Oh, but wait a minute, by third graders, that number drops dramatically. So we've got a problem right here. But then she can also filter by school and then have a discussion with teachers. And the beauty of SchoolStatus, I was talking earlier about it being scoped. No longer is she having to email a spreadsheet, which is incredibly dangerous. I think on a recent episode you guys had, you were talking about the cybersecurity issues.
Exactly.
So that's a very real thing. So SchoolStatus, you have to have a password to log in, a two-factor authentication on top of that, and then you're only going to see data for your students. So then LaToya can have a conversation with a principal who can then have a conversation with a teacher, and no data is getting exposed. They can all click on the same spot on the interface and see what they need to see. So I don't know. In that way, that's one way that I've seen things shift over the past 5 years with how that might have changed how the relationship with teachers and admins and how they operate with data.
So, and speaking of shifting, I'm going to kind of shift the conversation a little bit, kind of back to one of the things that LaToya mentioned, taking this data and using the aggregate data to apply that to PD. I think that is such an important piece that, frankly, I think a lot of folks who use various dashboards or they're doing a lot of the data analysis, a lot of folks approach that kind of almost exclusively to the student side of things. What can we do, for the students, which is not a bad thing, but by the same token, a lot of times from my experience, the educators themselves are sort of left out of that loop. There's not an emphasis on what can we do for our educators to help our students. So I'd like LaToya to talk a little bit about how you take that data and modify or maybe target that professional development to help teachers in those areas that you're looking for some help, some improvement?
So as Joy stated, we spent countless of hours building up what we call a benchmark tracker. I think at that point, I presented the idea to Melissa at SchoolStatus, and she connected me to Joy. And it was truly a blessing because we would take the benchmark assessments. Now we no longer have to do that. It's in SchoolStatus. So when we filter it based upon what we need. So let's say, for instance, I'm looking at my third graders, or let's just go up a little bit and say our fifth graders. So I'm looking at the fifth grade students across the district. In our district, we're a little bit over about 20,000, right at about 20,000 students. So we have 33 elementary schools, 32 that actually goes up to that are pre-K to 5. So with that being said, as a bird's eye view, I can look at all of our fifth graders within a district, and I can drill it down, and we take that data and look at it by school. So which school needs professional development, and it may be on fifth grade math based upon how many students were proficient. We look at how many students are growing. Our model is built on making sure that we grow all of our students. So it's not that we're just looking at our high performers. We're not just looking at our lowest performing students, or, we're growing all of our students. So we're looking at, when we go into we call our meetings focus instructional team meetings. They're fit. We go in and we haven't fit, around data. So when we go in, we're saying, okay, which teachers need additional support? And knowing how to move students towards proficiency, or who needs additional support on maintaining those students that are high performers and are growing our students that are bottom 25. So we start there looking at who needs what based upon where they are. After we determine that, we then go down into the weeds of it. Who are those? What are the standards that they need? And all of those things. So we use it like that. But more importantly, I like too, that I did mention earlier, is a subgroup. We are now able to filter it by our subgroup population. Mm. So not only are we looking at LaToya, who's proficient, we're looking at our Caucasian, we're looking at Hispanic, Spanish, African-American, Black males, white females. So we can really determine who needs that additional support. So we're looking at how can we better support students, and how can we support those teachers that's so needed. We're coming out of a midst of pandemic. We're trying to figure out how can we support everybody. So we use a program like that in various different ways.
So I want to go even back farther. I want to touch back again on the communication element, because that's a really big deal. And we learned that during the pandemic, did we not? The hard way sometimes. So let's talk about, I know that you do texting, you can do phone calls. Do you do video chat? I think you can do video chat, if I remember my research correctly. And emailing. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about which one. So this is a big one we talk about a lot. And you said it at the first. Texting is definitely a deal. We all know that social media is the best way to get out most of our information for our kids. But when you're getting down to those really hard conversations you have to have with parents sometimes, does the video chat and the actual voice, which one works better? Like for us on this podcast, we like to see your faces. It makes it easier to have this conversation. So LaToya, what do you think works best for y'all when you're having that conversation with the teacher and a parent?
I would say definitely the personal one-on-one. We take it back the old school way. Yeah. So being able to talk to you, being able to see you, because sometimes we can misinterpret a text. We can misinterpret an email, but if I can sit there and have a face and know that I'm serious, I'm stern, but I'm still smiling at it and it's with love, I can win that parent over. Yeah. So for us, we still encourage the personal one-on-one phone calls, being able to see your face. So either one works best for us, the video chat or the personal phone call, but we mostly utilize that personal phone call, contacting our parents and speaking with them. But we also allow our parents to tell us, what's your best mode of communication?
Nice.
And the one thing within SchoolStatus, you can mark that. You know, when I get ready to send out a message, and I ask LaToya, what's your best mode of communication? You say, well, you can email me. We start that person. I want you to contact mom or you contact dad. We can put a star there indicating who they want to be contacted. And we also can write notes at who, you know, how they would like to be contacted. But phone call is definitely us. We like the personal touch, and we try to promote here the personal touch. But sometimes I have to be honest, with the day and age we are, we'll text in a minute and they put it down, and parents see it and then they move on. So sometimes that personal conversation is just a whole lot better for us. We've seen better results from that.
Are there any features in the piece that allow the parents to see some of that data that you're talking about? Sometimes when you call their kids and say, listen, we've been noticing that we've had attendance problem, or we've got test scores in the classroom, or, you know, they're not turning in work. What's the parent? Is there a parent interface, and what is it like, or will it be there, or is it there? That's a question we'd like to ask for our educators.
There's not currently a parent interface, but I will say this. To talk with an educator, you do not have to download an app. There is no barrier. It is, if you have a phone, and it does not have to be a smartphone, you can communicate via SchoolStatus.
Sure.
But to answer more directly in terms of, particularly when you're on that, like a video conference, it's literally, you can just click a button and share your screen.
Nice.
So that you can show that parent, like, look, like LaToya is saying, it even has like a little bar graph per student, you know, like every Friday. It just seems like that's when you're missing. And you can kind of see, okay, relative to the rest of my classroom, we're not having that problem, you know. But like seeing, I guess, I like literally pictured it in my mind, like how that has changed for the parent, because it's so isolating. Like the school really is kind of like a black box. Like think about how long was it when you were in elementary school, and how much have things changed? So the ability to just see, like, what does proficiency even mean? Those are terms that we know in education. A parent doesn't know that. So being able to kind of see, okay, this is what I'm talking about when I'm referencing a scale score. Here's the benchmark. It's reading, you know, them being able. So I was thinking about, in response to that question about what's more beneficial, that Zoom or that conference call, or that, you know, having a video conference or a text. In all these different situations, there's kind of these different benefits. But yeah, I think that particularly when you're talking about really sensitive information, trying to have that video conference and that phone conversation so that, like LaToya said, you can feel that emotion. Because at the end of the day, it really is about relationships. That's, you know, you're most likely to be vulnerable with and express truly what's happening or what you're struggling with when you feel like you can be safely vulnerable. And that's usually going to happen with a little bit lengthier of a conversation. You can't always get that through a text.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Also, and I was going to add too, the one thing we do like when we do utilize the video chat, we also utilize that for our parent-teacher conference as well. That has really changed.
Sure.
You know, in the past parent-teacher conference, you come in, we sit down, we talk. Now, again, if our parents are unable to really physically make it, we can conduct a parent-teacher conference via the video chat. So, I mean, it's really evolved. And we just really kind of embrace it. We have to embrace technology and just not be afraid to utilize it. And that's what we've done differently, and the pandemic has forced us to do, which is a great thing anyway, though.
Well, and I think it's so vital. You know, we've talked about it and in some ways kind of danced around, but and it was mentioned earlier, and I apologize, I can't remember who mentioned it specifically, but one of the things that was brought up was that, this, first of all, you're for lack of a better description, you're kind of behind, you're behind a wall, right? Like you said, LaToya said, we don't have to give out our personal numbers in order to make these contacts. But also, similar to what we've been talking with, you have all of these different ways to reach out to the parents, the guardians, just like we talk about, diversified and differential instruction for the students. Parents need that for themselves to be able to communicate back with the school. And as we have talked about here, many times it depends on what that communication is. Do I need to do a video call to say, hey, we've got, I don't know, whatever parent-teacher conference is tonight? No, that doesn't have to be a video call. We can send out a text and there it goes. Or in some cases, here's a quick text or here's a quick phone call that could be followed up with a video call one-on-one if that's what the educator and the parent decide they need to do. And you're not having to jump from this particular application to that particular application to another particular application, right? It's all coming from this one source, which frankly is just, it's going to, I would think anyway, take off so much of the stress of trying to kind of organize those types of communications.
And I think we also would be remiss if we didn't mention the other part that administrators so love about SchoolStatus as well is the evaluation piece. That's actually how SchoolStatus was introduced to us,
oh, really?
Honestly.
Okay.
And then it kind of evolved into the other things. But we like the fact that we can go in and I can do a teacher observation and put the evaluation within that platform, send an email to you of my comments, my findings, and then the teacher can respond, make it a two-way conversation when I'm discussing areas of improvement or your glows and grows, as we should say. So actually, that's pretty much how it was introduced to us, was as a teacher evaluation process. And we like the fact that the SchoolStatus has worked with us to take the Mississippi Department of Education rubric and put it into the system. So it's there. We can rate at the click of a button through SchoolStatus, send that feedback, that information to that teacher. The teacher opens it up via the email or log into their account, get the information, and we can just have a conversation in regards to it. So I just
there, all of our listeners just went SchoolStatus. I gotta find this really quick.
That's right. All the
every administrator out there just went, hey, bro, gotta get to this real quick. That's right. That's a big sell. So one last question here. The adoption process, how did it go? Because that's going to be, you've worked with teachers for years. And so what PD are you going to give me? How hard is it going to be for me to adopt this and use this with fidelity and blah, blah, blah. How was that? How was the actual rollout for everything?
So I'll have to be honest, with any platform program you bring in, it's going to be a challenge because most teachers, and I don't care where I've been and the districts that I've actually had the opportunity and pleasure of traveling into, teachers sometimes believe this is just one thing, that this show too will pass. Something else will come along. I'm sorry. Yeah. So what we end up doing is we hung in there. We kind of pushed, I would say, implemented it slow and steady. We did the evaluation first, and then we rolled out the next 6 to 12 months was the communication piece. Now everyone is on board. And that happened because of consistent follow-up training. We have a person that has been solely assigned to our district. So without a drop of the hat, they come in, he comes in and provides training. So I would honestly say it took us about 2 years to get where we are right now. I would say we are full-fledged, we're rolling real nice. I checked evaluations. Our evaluations are due to MDE June 30th. And today we went through, and MDE requires the minimum of 2 informal, 1 formal. But our principles, we believe here, our philosophy at Jackson Public Schools is the more we observe and evaluate and provide feedback, the better that teacher becomes. So now they have really accepted the system. We have plenty of observations and feedback in there. The communication is the key, because around about the end of the year of every year, we offer a prize to our teacher who has the best communication out there, the most, who's communicating to their parents and enticing them and bringing them in and making sure that they're actively involved, they're engaged in our activities and in their students or their children's lives. So I would honestly say it took us 2 years to get it actively going. And then every year we provide training. So every year, at the beginning of the year, we provide a new teacher, and then we do a refresher for anybody that we have yet to get really bought into this thing we're doing.
That's beautiful. And that's the way to do it. Take your time, do it right. So I want to ask one more thing from both of you. If you wouldn't mind, would you mind sharing your information if our listeners wanted to get in touch with you or steal your ideas or, ask you about this process and everything that goes along with SchoolStatus and the way that you're using it. But if you wouldn't mind sharing Twitter, email, whatever you want to share.
I'm available at joy@schoolstatus.com, and you can find me on LinkedIn. I think that I exist on Twitter, but I follow Olympic runners. It's not helpful at all. So it's not useful in this world. And then in emailing me, help@schoolstatus.com too, if you have questions about, want to get in touch with, a demo or anything like that, we can hook you up. LinkedIn is probably the best way professionally to reach me.
Awesome.
LaToya?
And I would say professionally the best way. I'm not as LinkedIn and hooked up yet either. So I'll probably say the best way would be at my email address is Blackshear. I tell people black crayon, shear scissors, Blackshear, SHEAR @jackson.k12.ms.us. And I'm here anytime. Definitely appreciate it. Don't mind helping, because Joy and her team know I'll call at any point. The last little plug I definitely want to put in is the new feature that we added this year was a dashboard. We take benchmark assessments real quick. We take benchmark assessments 3 times a year. And we're wanting to know if our benchmark assessment was a real thing, was our real MDE assessment, how would we fare? What would be our impact data? We have school ratings, accountability rating. You can be an A school, B school. So Joy and her team has built a dashboard that helps us to determine where we would be if this was a real thing. So when we take our state assessment, we're not surprised. So we like that as well. But at any point in time, definitely can be reached. Don't mind assisting. Again, I call and ask Joy and her team 5,000 questions. So I don't mind anybody asking me the same.
That was a great encore, LaToya. And Joy, thank you very much for coming on the show. We hope you had a great time.
Thank you.
We did very much. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much to Dr. Joy Smithson and LaToya Blackshear for joining us today, talking about SchoolStatus and how Jackson, Mississippi School District is using SchoolStatus for communication, for data analysis, for helping with their PD,
evaluation.
Holy cow.
Well, it's really interesting. I love it when a school district finds the right piece, the right tool, the right service, the right piece. And SchoolStatus seems to be that one for Jackson, Mississippi and other schools. And then they use it with fidelity. We like to use that word fidelity. That's an educator thing. Are you using it with fidelity? Well, guess what? They're using SchoolStatus with fidelity. It definitely sounds like.
And as Joy said, there's no silver bullet. I get that. But dang.
We're getting close.
This is pretty decently close.
At least when
it comes to data aggregation and communication and evaluation,
Yeah.
It sounds like it anyway.
Very impressive. Hey, if you got some questions, you heard it at the end of the interview, you can get in touch with them or just check out SchoolStatus. Just look it up on Google. You'll find their website. Lots of helpful information there. Do your research. Find out if it's a right fit for you.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a commercial guy. All this
Every time you say fidelity, all I think of is high fidelity.
High fidelity.
Heard it from a friend who.
Oh, yeah. Come on, keep singing.
Y'all don't want that, man.
Hey, listen, don't forget to check us out on the web and follow us on social media. We post a lot of stuff on social media. Follow our Twitter account. We follow hundreds, I would even dare to say thousands of educators on Twitter. And so we repost what we think you would like to see in case you're missing it. And you can find just some folks out there. I've noticed that LinkedIn is becoming real popular again.
It really is.
And I'm not sure why. I mean, there's nothing wrong with LinkedIn. It's just becoming real popular. I don't know what's going to happen with Twitter. It's now been a month. It has a new boss, and so a new owner. Excuse me.
New owner.
Yeah, it could be painting the whole thing blue for all we know. Oh wait, it's already blue. Could be painting the whole thing green for all we know.
Paint it Tesla red.
Tesla red. Wouldn't it be funny if it was called Tesla Witter?
Tesla.
Oh no, I got it. It's going to be called Twesla. Tweslitter.
That sounds like the off-brand of a licorice company.
Twesla?
Twesla.
Hey, what you eating? I'm
Mr. Twesla.
Twesla in my mouth. That's a mouthful of Twesla.
And there it is. Right off the rails, right off the cliff. Woo-hoo. That, though, is why you tune in.
That's right. And you better stay here. We're coming to your house. We're getting the Mr. Machine right now.
That's right.
Hopping in.
Every move you make.
Okay, Sting. Oh, the police.
Every breath.
Shh. Anyway, hey. Hey, listen, we had a great show today. I hope you enjoyed it.
We're 12.
We're 12 years old. Yeah. Hey, please write us and tell us how silly we are. We'd love to hear from you. Hey, I'm Jeff Madlock.
I'm David Henderson.
We'll catch you next time.
You've been listening to the EduTech Guys. EduTechGuys.com.